If you're reloading for Creedmoor-Class cartridges, you're going to want to check out the new powder from VihtaVuori. It's called N555, and that's the subject of this video. Gavin here from UltimateReloader.com. When I found out about VihtaVuori's new powder targeted at the Creedmoor-Class of cartridges, your 6 Creed, your 6.5 Creed, your 6x47 Lapua, your 6.5x47 Lapua, your 25 Creedmoor, I knew I had to get my hands on some to give it a try. And in this video and in the accompanying article, I'm going to share my firsthand experiences. We're going to look at this powder in comparison to the other powders that are in that same burn rate category. And we're going to look at some of the technical data and look really closely at this powder to see how it's similar and different from other similar powders in this category. Looking at the relative burn rate chart, we're going to find N555 right there in that same vicinity with N150, H4350, Reloader 16, Reloader 17, and N550. This powder was specifically formulated to work really awesome with the Creedmoor-Class of cartridges like the 6.5 Creedmoor that I've got here, to have excellent lot-to-lot consistency, to have really good temperature stability, insensitivity to swings in temperature. It's also available in 1 pound kegs like what I've got here, and in the larger familiar 8 pound kegs as well. Let's take an up-close look at this powder to see how it compares to some of these other powders in this class. So here's what I thought we'd do for the up-close look. I've got a 400 power Wi-Fi microscope, and I've got 3 different powders here. I included Stayball 6.5 from Winchester. This is a new flattened ball powder that's in this same class, same burn rate category for the Creedmoor cartridges. We've got the familiar H4350 that most people are familiar with that have loaded 6.5 Creedmoor or 6 Creedmoor, that class of cartridge, and then of course the new N555. Now it took me a little while with the tweezers to get everything perfect here, and I'm not at full magnification, but you can see here on the tablet view over Wi-Fi the different powders. The Stayball 6.5 is that flattened ball. Each ball is pretty small in diameter, so it's going to take quite a few granules to equal one of the granules of the H4350, which is in the middle, and then the N555, which is on the right hand here under the microscope. This was a little bit of a surprise. When I was loading my test rounds with 6.5 Creedmoor, I thought that these sticks were going to be longer than the H4350 sticks, but it's just the other way around here, as you can clearly see there. And to give you an idea of scale, here I've got a precision scale, and each of these hash marks here is 1/64 of an inch. So these guys are really, really small, and each granule weighs about 0.02 grains, just like H4350. So it's going to meters in a similar way, and it's going to behave in a similar way. Let's see if we can get a little bit more magnification here to get an even more up close look at this. I'm going to have to refocus things here. There we go. Now you can actually see the surface texture. Because I've got this micrometer, we can inch our way over here. So there's H4350 compared with N555. You can see the 4350 looks a little bit more green. You can actually see that when you look into the canister or the keg. And the N555 looks a bit more dark gray or black. So kind of an interesting view of these powders. Next, let's talk about my experience loading 6.5 Creedmoor test cartridges and some very simple data that I gathered with this Ruger Precision Rifle. So for my first loads, I wanted to go with the canonical Creedmoor cartridge, which of course is 6.5 Creedmoor, and I wanted to use components that represented the sweet spot. So I used Lapua 6.5 Creedmoor cases with large primer pockets. I'm going to have some content coming up comparing. These are actually new, the large primer pocket cases. Lapua introduced their small primer pocket cases, which were great at the time because they fulfilled a need that wasn't met at the time. Now they've acknowledged the need for large as well, and you can have your choice. I used those cases, brand new. I took a look at the VihtaVuori N555 load data and kind of worked just below max and worked up looking for pressure, working my way up actually beyond max. I can't suggest that you do that. See the disclaimer in the video description. Bad things could happen. And for the bullets, I went with probably my best all-star performer for 6.5 in general, which is the Berger 140 grain hybrid target bullets. These long-range bullets are really amazing, and they're at 140 grains, they're right in the middle of the sweet spot of that range for 6.5 Creedmoor. I headed up to the Ridgeline 100-yard Ultimate Reloader shooting range, and I've got the micro cabin up there with my reloading setup. I just got all of the RCBS Rebel gear up there, so I was manually priming the cases, I was screwing in the dies, using my A&D FX120i scale, so I was getting 2/100th of a grain accuracy on my powder charges. That's how I kind of like to do these workups, where I'm going to actually share the data. Now, what I did was I worked up 3 shots at a time, shot them over the chronograph, and then at the end I shot some groups as well. And I've started to do this. This is not conclusive data, but these are good results to start from. I like to shoot 3-shot OCW, optimal charge weight, and then from those results look for a good standard deviation and a good velocity number, and then kind of fine tune and shoot 5-shot groups and further refine things like bullet seating depth and so on and so forth. That was outside of the scope of this exercise to try out N555 for the first time. So where I ended up at was, I started at 42.5 grains. VihtaVuori lists 43.4 as maximum for this particular load. They had this exact bullet in their load data, which was awesome. And I worked my way all the way up to 44 grains, which is above max. Again, I don't recommend that you do that. And so at 42.5, we were starting at about 2,630 feet per second. I didn't get all of the data recorded onto my card, and I was actually sighting in the rifle at the same time, so I didn't get groups for the first few. But at 43.4, which is the max load, we were at 2,731 feet per second for a 24-inch barrel. That is impressive. I've loaded quite a few different loads for this rifle in that 140 to 143 grain bullet weight range, and I haven't seen 2,700 feet per second out of this rifle with those loads, even going up to max. Probably about 2680-ish, somewhere in there. So at max, we're at about 50 feet per second more than what I've gotten with H4350 in the past. I did not push H4350 beyond max, and that's what I did here. So we continued to see the velocity increase until we topped out at 2,745 feet per second, which is great for 6.5 Creedmoor. I also took a look at some SD numbers from 43.4 on up to 44, and I had a couple single-digit SDs, one at 8.6 for 43.6, and one at 2.8 feet per second for 43.8. The last two, 43.8 and 44, were both sub-half MOA. The 43.8 coming in at 0.445 for 3 shots, and the 44 grain load coming at 0.330. So I'm going to actually want to go back and do a little bit more shooting with both of those loads to see where I get that sweet spot of good accuracy and a low SD number. I did not see any pressure signs at these charge weights, so I'm comfortable shooting that in this particular rifle. But again, you're going to want to be very, very careful working your way up to max, or if you do decide to go beyond, to make sure that you don't have signs of pressure. So in terms of performance, I think this rifle with this load and the N555 powder shows a lot of promise. Overall, I'm really impressed with N555 powder. If you're looking for a Creedmoor-Class powder to work with, I highly suggest that you get your hands on some, you load some ammo with some, and you see how it shoots for you. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications, because I've got a lot more related content coming up, tested stories like these. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And here, of course, I always say this at the end of videos, what do you think? What do you think about N555? What do you think about the load that I worked up? drop a comment and we'll start a discussion. And don't forget, down there in the video description, I've got Ultimate Reloader shirts on the Ultimate Reloader store. I'm on Patreon. Plus you can click that first link to go to an article that has links to product pages, more in-depth info, and so on and so forth. Thank you for watching. Until next time, happy shooting and happy reloading.